This place is kind of an anchor for me, an NLP anchor, which is when I feel a bit down, I just need a bit of a perk. I just come here, get a beer mat and sit and just remember the happy time that we sold the company. So this place has a kind of mystical significance. Well, my name is Mike Southon, and I'm probably best known as the Beermat Entrepreneur because I was lucky enough to co-author that book with Chris West back in 2001. I spend my time doing a lot of entrepreneur mentoring, and I'm now lecturing in a university on entrepreneurship and employability. I've worked on numerous, I think it's more than 17 now, numerous startups. Some were very successful, they ultimately went public. Some failed fairly quickly, largely because I couldn't sell the products or services. So we found out quickly about that. So I've had a lot of ups and downs, but a lot of good fun. If I was to sum up my story in one sentence, the answer is probably random, but looking back, there was a bit of order to it. Because if you looked at what I've done, it makes no sense at all. I mean, I suddenly started playing in a band, but I've always had the same role, which is the outgoing one. So if it's a band, I'm fronting the band. If it's a company, I'm doing the sales and doing the presenting and doing the outgoing kind of stuff. So I was back in my university town with a chap called Mike Banahan, who I'd been to the Edinburgh Fringe with. We'd been there 1 year and the university had lost a lot of money. And we worked out, well, it's obvious why, we're miles out of town. So we decided to go up on our own bat without the permission of the university to see if we could get a deal from a venue. So essentially a marvellous place called St Columba's by the Castle had a church upstairs and a church hall downstairs, rather bizarrely. We did a deal with them that we would do all the sound and light for all the shows for 3 weeks. So it was the first entrepreneurial thing I did, was with Mike Banahan, who was an electrical engineer, computer science guy. He did the sound and the light, he was in charge of that, I wrote the show. Mike said, well, get a job with this company in London. They call us up and say, would you like £1,000 to spend a week teaching Unix or C programming? So we just do that and then come back to the university and sort out the mess later. So I went down to London. They said, it's a great company, recruitment company. They're above a sex shop in Soho. Actually, it was a porn cinema, but you get the idea. So when I first came down to London, I was in an office here, right in the heart of Soho, near Piccadilly Circus and the famous Windmill Cinema. Now this here is a lovely restaurant now, but it was in those days one of the most popular porn cinemas in Soho. And just down the road is the pub where we wrote the original Beermat. I grew up in Berkshire, and my father used to work for British Leyland, and my mother was a German teacher. And they were very proud of the fact that they sent me to boarding school, first member of the family. My dad had been to a grammar school. And I thought that was normal at the time, back in '67, going to school, and then I was about 5 miles away from home, but I was boarding every night, but I thought that was normal. Very strange place, your British public school in the 60s. But the best thing that happened to me there was to meet my co-author, Chris West, who was in a different house. We met outside the headmaster's study on the first day, and we've been friends ever since. But looking back, it was a very strange way to try and educate people. Essentially, what they trained me to do at that school was to speak Latin and learn how to run the British Empire, two skills which I haven't actually used since. My father was a mechanical engineer. He'd done a degree when he was in the army after the war, so he said, well, I think you should do mechanical engineering. So I thought, why not? So I went to Imperial College to read mechanical engineering in 1972, which in retrospect was not the right choice because I wasn't that interested in mechanical engineering. And I just arrived in London, I've been to boarding school, and I saw a lot of things I'd never seen before. It was the end of the swinging 60s. I mean, cut me a bit of slack here. So I had a brilliant time in London doing everything except going to lectures. So I left Imperial College, to put it politely. Now this is the Lyric Tavern here in Great Windmill Street. And it's a very historic pub because back in the 80s we used to run our courses in a room above here. And it was this pub in which Peter Griffiths, Mike Banahan and myself wrote the original Beermat, which said something like, why don't we work for ourselves? Why don't we be entrepreneurs? Great pub. Well, I've had a lot of personal high points along the way, and it's always about the people I've met and the fun that I have with them afterwards. I was entrepreneur for the city of Liverpool for a few years, and the deal was anybody could just come and get an hour with me. So I'd say, what's your name and what's your big idea? So one guy came up to me and said, my name's Chris and I work for the council. My idea is to have a dinner to commemorate the 100th anniversary of my granddad's birth. So who's your grandfather then? He said, Bill Shankly, the legend of Liverpool, probably the most iconic manager they've ever had. And it was a great bit of mentoring because he didn't call me up every 10 minutes saying, what do I do now? It's like, what do you think about this? Yeah, do that, do that. So he did his dinner. He now is the chairman, I think, of the Shankly Hotel in Liverpool. And I'm kind of partly responsible for that. I didn't get paid, obviously, but that's the joy of mentoring. You give people advice for free, and not all are successful, but some You just think, I've done some good here. And you know you've won if you've created a legacy and nobody knows it was you. So we're now in Shaftesbury Avenue, opposite the Palace Theatre, where we launched the Beermat Entrepreneur. And this may look like any regular office building, but I noticed they've got an academy here for kids. But this was the building that was the headquarters of Hoskins back in 1989. And this is where I had to come to go to that final meeting to sign the bit of paper that was going to make me rich forever. A happy day. Let's see what's happening now.